it's Hailey, and today I wanted to talk about the books that I'm hoping to read for the rest of April because we are already like well through the month. I have had some pretty big reading plans for this month because honestly, I have read a lot. Like, I have to do another recent reads video soon where I have a ton of books to talk about because I have just been an insatiable reading machine, and I do have like what I think is a reasonable pile. I've been reading around like 4 to 5 books a week because I have been primarily listening to audiobooks and realizing that my ADHD, like, that is just the most helpful thing for me. That has been something that I've definitely kind of been getting to know about myself and accepting and not feeling guilty for, and that has made a massive difference for me. So I had like planned this for obviously earlier in the month, but then I didn't end up filming it because life just kept on getting in the way. And then by the time we got here, like, I've already finished a lot of the books that were on here. So this is the adjusted pile. Like, I'm not just going to be talking about books that I've already read because that wouldn't really make any sense. I will start with a couple of those that I have read though, which I will talk about further in a recent reads video. But one of the books that I was going to include on here was the Stuff and Nonsense Book Club Book of the Month. So this is the first book that we picked for my book club, which you can join down below. It is over on Patreon and it is just such a blast. Like, you can check out Bookland, and this was the first book that we picked. And then for May, we are going to be reading an adult book. So Stuff and Nonsense is the YA book club, and we picked A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. So I ended up reading this in a day in like one sitting, and I can't wait to discuss it with the book club. I'm really excited because watching like everyone's reactions as they're reading it has been so much fun. Like, everyone seems to be really enjoying it, which is good. Like, I enjoyed it. I did have a couple of things here and there with it, but it is like a mystery story and it kept me on the edge of my seat the entire time. So I'm glad that this was the book that we ended up starting with. And now I know, like, this was so hyped up on TikTok, so now I feel like I understand where the hype is coming from, at least to like a certain extent. But if you guys were interested in joining that book club, I will have the link down below. It's just at www.patreon.com/HaileyandBookland, where you can join us. It's a lot of fun. I also was going to include on this list The Lost Apothecary by Sarah Penner. Something about this just like seems like a spring sort of read to me, but I ended up actually finishing this one pretty quickly as well. And I wanted to mention this one because I read it like quite recently, as in like a couple days ago. So I will be talking about this in a recent reads video soon, but it was interesting. Now, the book that I am currently reading is Well, That Was Unexpected by Jessie Q. Sutanto. This is by the author of Dial A for Aunties, which you guys probably like at least should know by now. I really loved that first book. The second book I wasn't as big of a fan of, but that first book I really loved. And this book is definitely giving me those same vibes. It's set in Indonesia and the culture in here is just so rich. Like, you're completely transported there. It's making me want coffee so badly because the character keeps on talking about the coffee and how good it is. So then it just is making me want to like go to Indonesia specifically just to get a cup of coffee. Like, for other reasons too, because it seems beautiful, but to get a cup of coffee for sure. But this is really, really fun so far. I should be able to finish it in the next couple of days. If not today, then tomorrow. And I will talk about this one in a recent reads video as well. If you're looking for fun, like summer contemporary or just a fun contemporary, this is a really great one so far. Also, it's a fake dating story, by the way. I didn't mention that, but it's fake dating, and like the start of how they meet is so funny, and I'm just waiting for that to kind of like implode in everyone's faces, but in a good way. So the rest of the books on here are just kind of ones that have been sticking out to me for like one reason or another. It's probably not for a specific reason, but let's just get to them. So we have Our Violent Ends by Chloe Gong. This is the sequel to These Violent Delights, and I'm kind of in the mood to get to sequels right now because I feel like I have so many on my TBR and I don't want these ones to like sit there for a very long time like a lot of the others have. So this is actually a book that I read the first one last year, and I'm wanting to read Foul Lady Fortune, which is also by this author. So I'm like, I feel like I need to get to like, I need to finish this series before I read that next series by her, basically, because they're connected. They're like the Secret Shanghai series, but I need to finish the main one first. And it's something that I'm going to do soon. I swear. I promise I am going to do it. Actually, on a similar note, I have Heart of the Sun Warrior by Su Lin Tan. This is another one that I read the first book last year. So that was Daughter of the Moon Goddess, and I enjoyed that one thoroughly. Like, it was quite hyped up and I completely understood the hype. I ended up actually recommending it to my sister like pretty much immediately because I liked it that much. So I am really eager to see where the characters are now, you know, getting more of their story. I just loved that first book and I really want to read more writing by this author too, because the writing was one of my favorite things about it. Next is Where We End and Begin by Jane Igharo. So I have read all of Jane Igharo's books, I believe, up until now, except for this one. This one is her most recent and I have really enjoyed the other ones that I've read. They've managed to be like really romantic and sweet stories, but also pack a real punch to them. And that is something that I am like a complete sucker for in books. In this case, it is about star-crossed lovers who get a second chance at romance, which I really enjoy second chance romance, when they are reunited at a wedding. So the main character, she left Nigeria to study college in America, and now she is back in Nigeria. And I wonder if the characters who are getting married are ones from previous books. I'm not entirely sure, but I guess I will find out. I am just really excited for a second chance romance, excited for more from this author. I can't wait to read this. Next is One True Loves by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I picked up this book once I found out what the concept was. I kind of was like, I'm only really interested in historical fiction by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Those are the only books that I've really read. But then when I found out the concept for this one, I was like, no, that actually sounds like something that I would like a lot because it sounds like a wild ride. Essentially, the main character marries her high school sweetheart, and then shortly after, when they're newlyweds, he ends up, actually, maybe it's like a year after. Yes, it is. Okay, so on their first wedding anniversary, the husband, his helicopter goes missing and he's just considered missing and probably like considered dead just by assumption since he has gone missing in a helicopter. So then she ends up finding someone else, she ends up getting engaged, and then he ends up coming back. So I'm like, what is going to happen? Like, talk about a really rough situation and a rough love triangle. Like, oh my goodness, I have no clue what is going to happen in this book, but like, I'm thoroughly intrigued. Next is The Neighbor Favor by Christina Forrest. I kind of have been going for some like lighter contemporaries lately, but I'm trying to break out of that a little bit. But I feel like this one I can kind of make a little bit of an exception. So this is by the author of Xiaolan Kai most recently, but I've read a couple of other books by this author. But Xiaolan Kai I read last year and I quite enjoyed it. It was a really great like high school teen romance. I think it had a lot of merit to it, but this is their first foray, as far as I know, into the world of adult romance, and I am just so excited to see like what she's going to do there. I just want to read more by her. And this one, it's about a shy bookworm who ends up finding out that her neighbor is actually the obscure author that she has been like talking to, but she doesn't know that they're two in the same. It just, or one in the same, not two in the same. But I feel like this is going to be a recipe for hilarity and enjoyment. Next is When Women Were Dragons by Kelly Barnhill. This author wrote a middle grade book. I'm not sure if she has anything else, but this is an adult book and it seems like a really interesting concept. It's like a feminist fantasy as far as I know, that women are dragons. So I mean, When Women Were Dragons, you can kind of put that together, but like it's set in history as well. It says that it exposes a world that wants to keep women small, their lives and their prospects, and examines what happens when they rise in mass and take up the space they deserve. Seems interesting. I just have a couple more books here. I didn't realize how many I actually grabbed, to be entirely honest. I thought it was much less than this, but oh well. So next is Charming as a Verb by Ben Philippe. I read another book by this author a couple years ago and really enjoyed it, and this is his most recent book, I believe, but it is about this kid who seems to be like a goody two-shoes and everything, but it turns out he has like a less than clean or honest dog walking scheme, and the bad bad girl at school, she ends up uncovering that and blackmails him into helping her change her reputation at school. So I don't know how that's gonna go, but like, it does sound like it could be a lot of fun. And finally, we have As Long as the Lemon Trees Grow by Zulfa Katu. I haven't really seen much about this book, but it is a historical fiction that is set in Syria. I have been wanting to get to some more historical fiction, and this has been one that has definitely been catching my attention lately. Okay, so those are all the books that are on my rest of April TBR. I know that this is kind of like an all over the place list, but I hope that you guys enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching today's video, and I will see you in another one soon. Bye!